All right, guys. So, like I said, we're going to start off here with a chapter, new chapter vocab. We are starting the Age of Absolutism. Okay, in this chapter, we'll talk about the Age of Enlightenment and also the scientific revolution. So, there's going to be a lot of great ideas here that come out from, well, this topic of the Age of Absolutism. So, I know it's kind of fitting, I guess, when it comes to Veterans Day, of why we support and why we try to fight up against these monarchies, these tyrant leaders, and these dictators that are still around today. But we'll see a little bit more about how in Europe this was embraced at one point. So the age of absolutism, we're going to start with this chapter. We're going to talk about some of these fascinating kings that we imagine, right, when we think of the word king, and how they embrace their authority. Okay, real quick, I do want to review a little bit about what we talked about last chapter. That age of exploration, the age of discovery, is bringing in a ton of wealth, a lot of resources, a lot of materials, gold, you can imagine. Marketplaces were booming, which allowed for these kings to embrace this lifestyle because they had money that they've never encountered before. All right, with that, we'll talk about the Palace of Versailles and how French King Louis the 14th really embraced this monarchy. Okay. Anyway, like I mentioned, with Veterans Day here, I'm going to put that video lesson out there. So if you guys want to review that a little bit more, I'll have all the resources that we talked about today attached. So if you guys get a chance, maybe check that out and maybe look into it a little bit more. Okay, so I'll give you guys some time, work on these vocab terms, and we'll move on. All right, so the terms here, absolutism, what does that mean? Absolutism. Calvin, go ahead, thank you. Yeah, good job, right? So with this time period, we're going to talk about a few monarchs, a few kings here, and even queens that have absolute power, right? I know already we've been talking about a few of them. Henry VIII, he was a good example of an absolute monarch, right? He did really whatever he wanted, right? With the Act of Supremacy, breaking away from the Catholic Church, really wiping out a lot of people too when it comes to that pilgrimage of grace that didn't believe in his values and his ideas of this new Church of England. Bloody Mary, right? We talked about her too, and she really killed a lot of people too that weren't really following along here with this new Catholic overhaul of England. Yeah, so we already talked about some of these monarchs in England, right, about this new move. Real quick, with the divine right, so divine right, absolutism, they kind of go together. Right, a lot of these monarchs at the time believed that they were divine right rulers. What does divine right mean? Awesome, go ahead.
Type of like theory that God gives the monarch the power.
Yeah, good job, right? So a lot of these monarchs believe that they're chosen by God here to lead on earth. Right? So when it comes down to it, religion's still very high priority to people during this time, right? And let's face it, even still this day. But during this time, you would never dare to question a divine right ruler, right? They say they're chosen by God, well, you believe them. And that was a way for these kings, these monarchs to hold on to their power without any question and to do freely what they wanted to do, right? And no one would ever question it. So that's something to think about here with divine right. Hopefully you guys write down here that it's this monarch believes that they're chosen by God, right? That God has put them here on earth to lead their said country. Right, so we'll mention it here with England, right? Obviously with Henry VIII, he believed himself was a divine right ruler. We'll talk about it with Louis XIV, the Sun King. He believes himself to be a divine right ruler, chosen by God. And again, you can't argue it, right? You can't argue it. You'll find your head on a pike somewhere, right? Anyway, Louis XIV, the Sun King. What do we have for him? Who did lead her up? Right, Jason? Yeah, good job, right? So Louis the 14th, the Sun King, was actually one of the longest reigning monarchs ever, right? And with him, he served for over 70 some years. And during that time, that's a long time, right? People didn't really live too long, but in this case, for him, he did. And for France, right, as they're going through this age of discovery, they're bringing in a lot of resources, a lot of money into their country. And with that, well, they go back to the people. They went right to the king, went right to the monarch. Anyway, he believed himself to be the Sun King, which is kind of strange, kind of odd. Again, a divine right ruler chosen by God. And we'll talk about his palace of Versailles here soon, even maybe probably more tomorrow. I'll show you pictures, and you can kind of take a tour with it. All right, so if you guys ever use Google Earth, I'm sure you have before. I have a website too that gives you a little walkthrough around the Palace of Versailles, which it is beautiful. It's remarkable. But it's one of those things where they really went all out. He really went all out to try to show and express his monarchy. So much so that the people of France didn't really have enough food to put on the table, right? They were starving, they were dying left and right of disease, sickness, while he was living this luxury life. But you couldn't question it. You couldn't question it because, well, he was a divine right king. Also at this time, yeah, the printing press was coming about, right? So it was out, but still a lot of people couldn't read and write. Right? A lot of people couldn't come together and assemble to fight up against this type of tyranny. Right? Eventually that would come along, right? Which we'll talk about the French Revolution. We'll talk about the American Revolution. Eventually how words will become so powerful that they're even stronger than many of the strongest militaries of the time. All right, last thing here, the Palace of Versailles. All right, so the Palace of Versailles, what do we got here? What do we write? What do we write here? I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, right? Calvin, what do you got? Yeah, good. So right outside of Paris, France, okay, the king built, Louis XIV, built this massive palace, right? There was gold embroidered in many of the rooms. There's literally a room that was full of mirrors. They call it the Hall of Mirrors. And this is where actually World War One, after some time after the armistice, they'll sign this agreement and put a lot of reparations on Germany. Anyway, at the time we'll talk about it, mirrors were a luxury item, right? In some cases, they were worth more than even gold. So this room was littered with mirrors, littered with chandeliers, to a point where people were just fascinated by the amount of wealth that was put into this place. So I'm sure when you looked it up, there's pictures that came up on your screen when you're looking at the Palace of Versailles. Again, we're going to dive in deeper with it. We'll look and explore some of the rooms, even the gardens of Versailles. Pretty amazing. Okay, some people have, did anybody ever visit France? Yeah, do you check out the Palace of Versailles? Do you have pictures?
Yeah.
Oh, cool, bring them in, maybe we can talk about them tomorrow, all right? I'm sure they're on your phone, so we
Yeah.
can show people, man, that'd be good. Awesome, so you got to see the gardens and everything?
Yeah, we walked around the park.
Oh my gosh, do you see the whole mirrors?
Yeah.
I'm jealous, wow, that's awesome. Pretty remarkable, isn't it? Anyway, so with these terms here, guys, we're gonna talk about this. I know we only have a few minutes left. We'll end here, okay? Tomorrow we'll pick up and talk more about the Sun King. We'll talk about the Palace of Versailles and, well, this divine right theory, this idea. People are chosen by God. Man,